Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, hi,
So
good
I
morning.
am Pratima. Welcome you all on behalf of the PSU Automation Masterclass for the power and energy sector. And I thank you all who has joined us today. So intelligent automation is a crucial component of the technology-led automation across the sectors, and especially in the power sector. And today, Masterclass, we will be talking about automation opportunities, business value, area that are right for automation, key digital transformation drivers and initiatives, and much else. This 1.5 hour class is going to be really enlightening for all of us, as our panelists bring a blend of experts from the public sector, private sector, and solution provider with years of experience. But before we begin the session, I would like to quickly share how delegates can ask questions. The session is about 1.5 hours, so when you have any question in between the panel, please keep us posted through the question box that is right below. And there will be live interaction with the panelists. And if you like to ask question directly over voice or video, please mention your question in the question box along with the panelist's name. The question is intended to, and how would you like to ask, through video or audio? And do keep your hand raised. If you have any queries or concerns, please keep us posted through the question box. So without further delay, I would like to invite our esteemed expert, Shri K.S. Kalidas, Chief General Manager, IT, NTPC. Mr. Kalidas is an electrical engineer from NIT Calicut with MBA in Finance from IIT Ghaziabad. With 22 years of experience in coal and gas station operation and maintenance, he has been looking after IT initiative of NTPC from last 12 years. SAP implementation, 100% paperless office, virtual office are some of its major implementation by him. The Thursday now is on more on automation and OT areas and integration of OT and IT. And full digitization of other functions with us on AI and analytics is another priority. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. Now I welcome Ms. Vinita Agarwal, Senior General Manager, Smart Grid, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Vinita has more than 30 years of professional experience in the field of substation installation and commissioning, implementation of SCADA systems, system operations and automation in generation, transmission and distribution. She was one of the core members involved in bringing online monitoring of transmission system projects in the country, which help in reliable and smooth operations and management of power systems. Presently working on the development of SynchroPacer, analytics for real-time dynamic state measurements and control of power systems, deployment of smart grid technologies integrated with intelligent devices, monitoring of IT and communication technologies, and renewable energy management centers for handling large-scale grid-connected renewable sources. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. Now we have Shri Arijit Mitra, Vice President in Information Technology, Power Corporation Company Limited. Arijit leads the IT function at Noida Power Company Limited, an electrical engineer from Jadavpur University. He began his career at CESC Limited and have worked in electricity utility industry for more than 28 years in different functions and in commercial, metering and testing, TQM and IT. In his stint of more than 22 years at Noida Power Company Limited, he has had the privilege of being associated with the growth of the IT practices from the incipient stage of PC-based computing to leading exciting implementation of ERP, GIS, analytics, AI, among other technologies, and some of which have been the vanguard of changes in the Indian utility industry. Welcome, Aditi. And now, our moderator of the Sri Pramod Agarwal, Vice President, Regional CTO Automation Anywhere. Mr. Agarwal is a technology leader with 23 plus years of global work experience in creating enterprise business application and high performance platform technologies. He currently serves as a regional CTO for Automation Anywhere, a Silicon Valley startup in robotic process automation and AI space. Prior to his stint, he headed the India Development Center for Oracle's PeopleSoft Enterprise Software Division, and then as a CTO for Applied AI Platform for Baker Hughes, an energy technology firm. He's passionate about the use of IT in transforming organizations and help them succeed in their mission. He's an alumnus of IIT Roorkee, IIM Bangalore, and the Ohio State University. Thank you, Pramod, for joining us and moderating the panel. So before beginning the panel discussion, Mr. Agarwal has a very short and very interesting presentation. And we will begin the panel once he finishes his presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, keep posting your questions and feedback. Over to you, Mr. Agarwal. And let's start with the presentation.
Thank you, and good morning to my esteemed panelists as well as all the participants. I hope everybody is safe and taking all the necessary precautions in working from wherever they're working. Let me start the session with a opinion poll. Ragini, are you ready with the opinion poll?
Yeah.
And can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen and I'm playing the poll. So audience, there is a poll, where is your organization in the automation journey now? And we are opening it and seeking your answers.
Once the poll is over, please let me know what the results are.
Sure. So we are getting the answers. So we're just winding up the poll quickly and launching the results. 33% of our attendees says that they are evaluating the technology. 33% says planning and experimenting, and 14% attendees said they're doing a pilot. 16% says that they are scaling up the RPA setup, and 5% says they have not begun yet.
Fantastic. So I'm so happy to hear that the majority is aware of the technology, and many are already in the phase of either scaling up the RPA setup or doing a pilot. So I think that gives me a good idea of where people are. Next poll, please.
Yeah.
So for this next poll, I think the audience should just think about what would be the ideal state of operations in their organizations and where RPA can play the role.
There is a second poll, which are the functions wherein you see a lot of manual and repetitive activities across the organization. It is HR, finance, operations and management, IT, or marketing. Few more seconds to close the poll. So closing the poll, and results are with us. 32% attendees said that HR, where they see the manual and repetitive activity. 22% said finance, and 34%, the majority says operations and management, and 8% of them said IT, and 4% said marketing.
Fantastic. So it looks like, given the nature of the audience, operations maintenance is high on their mind. And I think with the panel, we have, I think, varied set of experiences with which we will be able to cover what are the areas ripe for automation in each of these different activities within the organization. So I think with that, let's start with a brief sort of level setting talk around what automation really means. And let me try to go to the next slide if I can. Ragini, how do I get to the next slide?
You're the presenter, you just play.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Okay, I think I found it. Sorry about this. Yeah, okay. So once again, welcome. So let me just talk a little bit about the organization to whom I belong. Automation Anywhere has been a leader in the space of RPA. It's a 15-year-old company. And really the category of the software RPA was defined by Automation Anywhere. And within this space, if you look at all the analysts like Gartner, Forrester, HFS, they recognize us as the leader. And the 4,000 plus customer base, 2.1 million bots already operational, sort of goes to show the scale of the technology and varied use cases to which the technology can be deployed. The closest equivalent that comes to my mind, given that the software category is new, is a fairly known construct now called the database, right? So I think about 40 years ago when the relational database started, they probably went through a lot of evangelization and understanding of where the technology could be applied. In my view, the automation technologies are fairly at a very similar state of maturity where people have seen it, people have experienced it, and now they are starting to look at it in a much more broader perspective, right? We are an Indian heritage company with all the 4 co-founders being Indian, and a large number of engineers and support functions work out of India for Automation Anywhere. So support for customers in India and in the region is a huge part of our story. If you look at the automation, and I think many of us who have been in the IT functions know that the typical enterprise has hundreds or possibly thousands of applications, and they just grow over time, right? And a lot of applications get deployed around a certain business value, and they keep getting more and more improved and mature over time, and the technology really doesn't grow with them. But if you look at the process layer, which is where the business value exists and which is why the application was designed for, a lot of human intervention is required to make the systems deliver what you designed them for, right? And a lot of times these processes exist and need to be orchestrated across multiple applications. And today, human workforce is deployed to make these systems do the job with the help of the humans, right? And this results in errors, this results in delays, this results in bottlenecks in the processes, and eventually this results in the technology not being utilized for what it was designed for, right? And this is where automation fits in, where you think of these bots or digital workers as software routines that are collaborating along with the human being to take the manual task out and let the human beings focus on what the human beings are meant for, which is intelligence, decision making, empathy, and goals like that, right? And this is why this 80-20 gap that you see today, where 80% still remains to be automated, needs to be done via something we like to call as digital workforce. So for this digital workforce, we think of it as 3 different constructs. One is the core RPA construct, where you need to discover the process. So we have a product called Discovery Bot, as an example, which can sit as an agent, as an observer on a user's machine. And let's say you have a team of accounts receivables clerks or purchasing clerks. The discovery bots can sit and understand what it takes to get through the process, and then use the RPA to automate that particular process that can actually be automated, right? And it's a low-code interface that can essentially act as a plug-and-play model on top of your existing systems to get access to all the data, and then do something with the data, just like a human being would, and then take it to the next step in the process and get the whole automation done end to end. And because the technology is low code and plug and play, you can use it for front office to back office automation. As an example, if you have a customer service requests around, let's say, a address change or a new connection or what have you, right? Then this request that is being handled by the agent, or through paper or through a phone call or through other web-based mechanism, that eventually needs to be translated into a back office entry into some other system that will actually make that particular connection, for example, activated, right? Or a particular demand for a material result in certain changes, like the inventory or the warehouse, right? So full front office to back office automation can be done using the platform. Now, a lot of times a process not only involves reading the data or entering the data, but also making sense of the data, right? And the platform allows you the capability to read, for example, documents like invoices, bank accounts, right? All kinds of financial and customer related information, and then process that intelligently so the human being doesn't need to read the document and enter into the next step in the process. Along with that, a lot of times a process might also require some sort of human inference. So you can build AI models, and these AI models can be used to provide that inference at scale, and that inference can then be used to drive the next step in the process, right? So you can then use the human being for understanding the machine-driven inference, and then we interject wherever required. So this is typically referred to the industry as human-in-the-loop AI, and that really helps in driving a greater amount of processes or the tasks to be done through AI in association with the human being. Then once you have done the whole end-to-end automation, analytics driven around, let's say, process outcomes or the process SLAs is the next holy grail, right? So the products like Bot Insights help you understand the SLAs and identify where are the bottlenecks in the process, and then how do you resolve those bottlenecks, right? So the whole platform, from automating, optimizing, discovery, and then again automating or optimizing discovery, can continue until you have reached the ideal state for your process and operations. If you look at some of the benefits, a lot of our customers see benefits in the range of large improvements in productivity, reduction in errors, and as a result, the customer satisfaction goes up. So just take an example of something like raising a invoice, correct, error-free or correct invoice, right? If you just think about that one simple task, then the impact of a correct invoice is not just on the customer satisfaction, it also results in payments being made on time, and therefore you can achieve much better cash flow in your organization. So simple things that either are error prone or causing bottlenecks can lead to improvements in the whole business cycle. If you look at treasury operations, if you look at operations, for example, reading your say SCADA instruments for a variety of operational inputs from these large networks of equipment that you have, and then you're able to make meaningful sense out of the data, and then you can drive, let's say, a field service engagement because of what you're reading off of these operational data received from these instruments, and you can automate that whole process. You can drive a much better way to maintain your systems that can lead to work quality improvements, efficiency improvements, lowering of risks on your, for example, downtime of your equipment. So because the technology is so in a way flexible, you can apply it to a lot of different areas where hitherto it was difficult to either improve the existing system or for putting in this additional layer on top that can make this whole stream of data work through the entire set of processes that can really help you achieve your business goals that you set out for. In a survey that was done by Capgemini, they actually did a, I think, global study, and they found that energy sector, which is already technology rich, is very adept to handling technology like automation and AI. And a lot of areas that they identify as prime for automation are things like increasing in operations quality, increase in staff productivity, improvements in handling your service requests from a turnaround time perspective, and handling, for example, regulatory requirements and changes in the regulatory requirements and compliance for that. With automated tools, you can drive compliance in every transaction and then take meaningful action on those transactions. And if there is a change in the regulatory transactions, the regulatory rules, then you can quickly implement those using these automation tools as well. So some of our customers, let's take a couple of them. CPFL Energy is out of Brazil. Synergy is out of Australia, and I think Adani is implementing it in India. So Synergy, as an example, did a dipstick on our product with their billing operations, and they found that by automating their billing operations, they could drive uh, annual cash benefits to the tune of $1.5 million, whereas the ROI on the product that came was about 163%. Similarly, CPFL Energia took a much more holistic approach to automation, where they looked at HR, finance, customer care, operations, etc., and they were able to automate about 156,000 transactions per year, resulting in multi-million-dollar value for them. And similar examples are abound in various industries across the board. If you look at power sector, we see use cases across field operations, supply chain, safety compliance, trading and pricing, because each one of these areas um, today deals with multiple systems, multiple levels of human intervention in getting the job done, right? So things like fault diagnosis and alerting, things like demand monitoring, right? You think of workflow and the dispatching of the workforce to, let's say, fix a fault in a particular uh, T&D center, right? So all of these can be highly automated and improved, not just from a workflow perspective, but also getting the data out and then taking the subsequent action on the data. If you look at corporate functions across operations, HR, treasury, invoicing, and say accounts payables, receivables, in IT from a help desk perspective, in customer care, in handling all type of customer requests, in implementing, for example, conversational voice interfaces on top of your existing systems with the help of this automation layer in the middle is highly possible with our platform. And a lot of our customers are today benefiting by implementing the automation technology in improving the customer service. So really the application of technology is very, very wide. And that is why I sort of go back to the database example, where databases today are prevalent in empowering all kind of applications. In a similar way, automation technology that we provide is capable of having you build that top orchestration layer on top of any underlying application. So whether you look at IT, whether you look at operations maintenance, whether you look at your core HR or finance operations, everywhere, wherever you can think about, maybe intuitively you can think about, oh, why something could not get done in a matter of minutes or matter of hours, which is taking, say, days or weeks. You can actually apply the technology and you can apply this automation mindset to see how do we now use this technology to get us to the desired state, right? So while a lot of application systems are already in place, the end goal of a process from an outcome perspective, whether it is efficiency, whether it is productivity, when you think about that, then you can really start to think about, if I automated some of these operations that either are happening through manual intervention or involve a complex workflow, can I really go and automate it? And it doesn't have to be just rule-based. You can use AI-based models to automate some of that inferencing as well, to really get to that end outcome or desired state that you have in your mind. A lot of customers in India, Tata Power, Adani, Indian Oil, in the energy sector, there are a bunch of customers we have, and in finance, in manufacturing. So really the technology is proven to have worked in all kind of business operations and corporate functions across different industries. So that was my pitch for automation. Let me now look at what do you think about the kind of goals you want from automation. So could you please run the third?
So,
Ragini, can you run the third?
Yeah, I am playing the poll. Just a second. Waiting for people to answer. What is the most important for you in achieving results from automation? Increasing productivity, improve quality and compliance, higher customer satisfaction, or greater speed? We're getting the answers for a few more seconds. Closing the poll now. 39% said increased productivity, 39% said improved quality and compliance, 9% said higher customer satisfaction, and 13% said greater speed.
Fantastic. I think productivity is on everybody's mind clearly. Let's run the next poll as well.
Yeah, sure. So, okay.
Fine. Yeah. So that this is about the critical challenges faced by you in the automation journey. So I know we have about 30% of the audience who are on the automation journey, but I think others also can sort of think about where they might have challenges. For example, if people who are just starting on the journey, ROI justification may be something that's on your mind. So let's run the poll.
Ending the poll now. And the results. 40% people said that process identification. 33% people said ROI justification. 15% people said technology vendor. 10% people said inability to scale. And 2% said that yet not started.
Fantastic. I think this makes sense given where the audience is. So thank you very much. I think we'll now move into the panel discussion. So welcome to Vinita, Rijit, and Mr. Kalidas. I think to start the panel discussion, I'd probably like each of you to express your views around why automation makes sense for you from a sector or industry perspective, and what are the key areas that you see are ripe for automation in today's environment, which I think is significantly changing given the new dynamics that COVID is creating among all of us from an outside market perspective, as well as how our internal work environments are changing. So, Mr. Kalidas, maybe I'll start with you, and then we'll take the conversation forward. Thank you, Mr. Kalidas.
Okay, I think I'm audible to all of you once again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pramod. I think you gave a very good insight into the automation requirements and what are the areas where it can be applied, what are the possible benefits. That's right, I've seen it. See, automation, I think according to me, it is a never-ending process. You automate something, you find something is left out. Okay, and what you automated, you find there is further scope for automation. So this is a kind of situation we are also facing. And another slide said, what are the constraints for automation? I think that is rightly pointed out. Some is you have to identify the right process, how you want to automate it, and what technology you want to use for automation. Okay. This is also a challenge. Everybody is facing that challenge. Now, coming to specifically to our power sector NTPC, see, we can say initially, I mean, we have two kind of automation happening now. One is on the process side, one is on the IT side. That is for general business automations. And one thing is that so far, till up to about 2000, it was a kind of different scenario. If country was having power shortage and generation was the only criteria. How much you can generate to generate, it was being consumed. Slowly, situation changed. There are regulators now. There are restrictions. There are some compliance required. Some kind of discipline required. And definitely, it needs an overall optimization. Let me tell you, initially, our plans, once it is available, we were simply allowed to run it. If it is that 100%, you can generate whatever you want. Now situation has changed. Of course, renewable energy also contribute to that crisis. You have to declare your capability in advance. Okay. Then you have to stick to that capability. If you don't generate as per your schedule, then you are losing it. Also, you have to ramp up, ramp down now to meet the grid requirement. Okay. So your machine must be capable of doing that. So all of these things you have to do in a very optimal manner. Again, power is a regulated commodity. There is a regulator. That regulator decides our, how much I can charge to the customer. So there is a 5 year there is a kind of revision. Efficiency also plays a very important role. Okay. So they see what the global standard. I mean, we cannot be much different from the global standard as far as our performance is concerned. So definitely this improvement in efficiency comes only through certain automation and new technology adoption only. So that is the area, that is the constraint by which process side now we are doing a lot of automation. I'll come to that in detail. And so far, even today also, our IT and OT, by and large, they are two separate islands, even though there is some interconnection. But today, as I told you, since there is more and more requirement of process automation, and it's visibly to the top management for monitoring, for taking action, and need for IT OT integration also has come up now. Okay. On the IT side also, IT side and other general other function, I will say. See, one good example of how automation can help us. I think other panelists also will share now was during this, disruption due to last 3 months due to COVID. It came all on a sudden. Okay, suddenly on 25th of March, US said, okay, tomorrow is lockdown. And power is a commodity, you cannot shut down. You have to generate. And okay, land is, we are having a township that is separate, entity, different from the other world. People can go to the plant and work it, but then there are a lot of support functions required for running the plant, to arrange the fuel, to arrange the commercials, all procurements. These are being done by our officers. Okay. Luckily, since we were planning for a kind of virtual office even before this COVID, also last 6 months we were trying it, and suddenly we have to switch over to that platform. Okay, so the virtual office, I'll tell you, initially first 1 week we had some hiccups. That's why we were, suddenly we were asked to change over. Subsequently, we could manage all our other functions without any disruption. Even today also now there is no compulsion from the management that you have to go to office. Yes, if you can go to office, do it. Otherwise, work from home has been a kind of a norm now. Okay, because what is that in the office to be required? You have to only process certain, approvals. You have to conduct certain meetings, certain decisions, and of course you have to access certain applications. Not everything is available from home. We are given access through VPN to all critical functions. We are having a platform for all kind of virtual meetings. We have our own mail system. I mean, today automation, I'm telling you, suddenly, suppose somebody wants to have a meeting, just within 5 minutes, meeting is arranged. Okay, because it doesn't matter who is where. I mean, you can simply connect it. That way, in a way, I think our efficiency has little gone up. I mean, to be frank. Okay, and I think this is going to have a lot of change in the coming days. The virtual office and the work from office is going to be a major change, I think, in the coming days. On the process side, as I told you, we have to optimize our operation. There is no other way to be competitive and survive in this industry now. Also, we are, because of the renewable energy capacity addition, we have to do a lot of flexibilization of our operation. Okay, I mean, you have to, morning peak hour, yes, have to generate more power. When the peak hour goes down, I have to reduce my generation, and even in peak hour comes, again I have to pick up my generation. Okay, there are, we being a coal plant, there are a lot of restrictions for this ramping up, ramping down, but then there is increased thrust on that. We have to do, there is no other way to meet the grid demand. So we are doing a kind of advanced process control along with some of the OEMs. Of course, the system is capable of doing it, but then how to do it in a much more, optimal way, meeting the grid requirement. The grid also says you must be able to ramp up 1% of your capacity in 1 minute. And if you can do more, you are getting more benefit out of that. So these kind of things now we have done Last 1 year, a project we have done that is successful. Now we will be rolling into other plants also, this advanced process control. As far as automation of our another big package is coming. It is we had some difficulty advanced asset management. This is again to reduce our maintenance cost and optimize our availability of my equipment. As I told you, my availability is very critical for me. I have to declare my availability in advance. If I don't do, or if I declare in advance and I fail, again I'm in loss. So my asset management also very critical for me. Right now we are doing the management through RCM, reliability and maintenance, and we have one system where is that is the only area where our operational network and IT network is connected. That is plant information system, wherein the real-time parameters from the DCS system we are capturing and coming to the IT system, and we have a lot of applications based on that, which is made available to all the concerned, including the top management and decision makers. It is available on their mobile phone. They can see all performance. They can see the operations, and they can take decision accordingly. Even alerts also are provided. Now, as I told you, the area for automation, the support function, HR, finance, contracts and procurement. These are another area where we need to do a lot of automation, because those areas there is a lot of manual work going on now. In fact, with one of you, we have done a POC also on this RPA, and that was successful because a lot of manual entries taking place, be it my medical record, be it my claim process, be it my hospital bills, vendor invoice. So this is an area where we find a lot of scope for doing automation and reducing manpower, all these mundane jobs which are boring for people, but then it has to be done. So that is an area where we are going a big way for automation. Today, another thing we are doing is like we have become a 100% paperless office. Before that was another area which was kind of impediment for smooth process and efficiency. Right from it is a procure to pay. Now everything is digital. Of course, tendering is through e-tendering only, and subsequently award also to that we give only digital PO only. Now even the invoice that the vendors have to submit till about 2 months back, they had the option of submitting paper invoice. Of course, we are retained for small vendors, but now today we have allow the vendors to submit digitally signed invoice also. Okay, and once they submit digitally signed invoice, right from the day they submit, they can track what is the status till the payment is done. And when payment is done, also they can see what is the payment done, what is the deduction, all those things. So that kind of an enablement we are given to vendors. It is because of automation.
Fantastic.
No, and now 2-3 areas where we have to further optimize. One is, see, as I told you, demand forecasting is an area where we have a lot of potential to explore, both for our conventional power generation as well as renewable. Because if we know in advance with maybe within 2-3% error, what will be the demand next 2-3 years, I can plan a lot of things accordingly. My maintenance, my fuel consumption, my fuel stock, my maintenance I can plan. And especially for RE, this is a very much critical for me. This demand forecasting. Right now, we are doing some kind of time series analysis in our application only, but this is not very accurate. We have to go for advanced solution. Because in RE, what happens is, like conventional only, I have little more margin, but there also I have to exactly predict what I can generate, say 1 hour from now. Okay, so based on the previous year's performance, certain considering certain weather data, I'm making a prediction right now. Mostly it is going okay, but sometimes it create problems also. That is an area where I need further automation.
I think, Mr. Kalidas, we will come back to you. You'll hear from other panelists, and I think several important points are made around automation as a continuous journey, and these areas like demand forecasting, which are I think also related to the way the nature of power generation is changing from highly centralized to a mix of these big plants and then renewables and maybe even local generation by customers. I think that's a pretty interesting area to explore. So maybe Mr. Arijit, I'll come back to you now. And I know you have been a proponent of automation for some time, and you've had your own automation journey in place. So could you please talk to us about how you went on to this path of automation and how you see automation from an NPCL perspective?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, thanks a lot for the opportunity to participate in this very interesting discussion. So when I joined the electricity utility industry, in fact, I have worked in DISCOMs all through. We used to go around taking meter readings, and even for high tension customers, the billing process was in our company was manual, and people used to generate the bills manually and then get it delivered to the HT customers, because it was thought that these were, you know, very, very high value transactions which had to be manually monitored and controlled. From that age, we have traveled far, and today we see that not only are the meter readings obtained through automated meter reading processes, but we process the meter readings, pass them through validations, and then carry out the entire billing process through our information IT processes. And the bills are generated and circulated with our customers, which may not even require a hard copy. We can straight away generate the bill and send the soft copy of the invoice straight away to the customer. So the entire process has been hugely automated over the times. But what we have also seen is that when we have implemented these IT applications, some of them have been very costly applications, also costly projects as well. And but we have found that there have been areas where there have been gaps, and basically where manual interventions have been necessary. There have been steps in those processes where people have said, you know, those who have been implementing these applications have said, no, we don't want to customize this application too much. It will become difficult to, you know, sort of manage the application if we try to customize too much. So certain steps have remained manual, and as we go along and as we live with these systems over the years, we find that the demand for automating these steps is ever growing, as Mr. Kalidas has correctly pointed out. I mean, it is a journey where the goalpost is always moving. You would have thought that after implementing an information system, which is one of the most renowned in the world, you would actually arrive at a situation where you can settle down and think that, you know, now for some years we may kind of rest on our oars, but that hardly happens. The need for automation is also because people want to concentrate on those things where their judgment and their role as a decision maker is utilized better, and those areas are where people want, you know, that automation should come in and take away those roles where they are really performing manual repetitive transactions which really don't add any value. And that is certainly something that we are closely looking at. There are important areas because of which we have already looked at robotic process automation as one of the game changers which can come in and step in where those gaps exist between various applications, and where we can turn our employees into more productive beings.
You are not audible.
I think, we lost your voice for a last minute.
Arijit, you are not
Arijit, you are not audible.
Arijit, you are not audible. Hello? We have lost your audio, Mr. Arijit. Okay, I think, yes, now you're audible again. Yes.
Okay, fine. So I was saying that with the onset of the COVID-19 outbreak and the lockdown, of course, when the lockdown was imposed, we were in a situation where we had to make our services available to our customers without any distinction, because that was virtually a duty that we had to perform, one of the most important duties for us. And at the same time, we had to virtually forget about the processes through which we collect meter readings, especially when we have to visit premises to collect meter readings, and also to collect money, except for those collections which are coming through the digital channels. So obviously the situation has become very acute because of the lockdown period. I'm sure there are other organizations also which are equally affected. But for us, definitely the focus has been on finding more efficiencies in the process. Obviously, right now it is a matter of making ends meet in terms of finding ways where we can save costs and bringing in more efficiencies in the processes, as well as making the processes more agile has become very important. Because as we see, even today, the situation that we are in at this moment.
Again, we lost your voice.
Lost you again, Mr. Arijit. You're not audible, Mr. Arijit.
Arjit, not audible.
Something is going on with his device. Maybe in the interest of time, we'll move to Ms. Vinita.
Is this any better? Now am I audible?
You're back again. You're back again, and maybe Rajit, if you could say, maybe wrap up your initial comments in a minute, we can then go to Ms. Vinita and come back.
Yes, I think yes. So I think so far as robotic process automation is concerned, we see that as a strategic opportunity for us to bring in those efficiencies and bring in the agility in our processes that can help tide over the current crisis. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. And I think once this resiliency and agility is baked into the system, this will continue. This is not a stopgap measure. This is something that will stay with organizations forever. So, Ms. Vinita, I think you're on the OT side and the smart grid automation areas of your interest. I was just wondering whether if you would be able to comment upon just from an operations and maintenance perspective, what the areas for organizations to explore, and how do you see application of technology like automation and AI in your personal experiences, or how do you project it to be useful?
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk on the subject. The subject is really very close to my heart. I started my journey by automating the transmission system operations right when it started in the country way back in 1998. So I realized that it took me almost 10 years to bring in that process automation for monitoring the transmission asset and transmission system in the country. So then after 10 years, now nobody can think of operating a power system without the automation. So I'll briefly touch upon what are the needs of automation in different power sector domain, which is generation, transmission, and distribution. Also briefly touch upon what we are doing in terms of bringing that automation in the sector. So on generation part, Till now, we know that demand is growing, so definitely generation will grow and more generation will come. Till now, we all know that 60% is from fossil fuel, but the future is mainly the renewables, which are by nature intermittent and variable. So they bring in very challenges in the operations of power system mix, which is coal, thermal, as well as renewables. So what we are doing now is renewable need to be somewhat controllable, like what fossil fuels are. So we are coming up with a mechanism to monitor the renewables and then predict the renewables at a state level, so that entire state can figure out how much is the variability in terms of total renewable in their region, and then accordingly they can plan their thermal generations. So we are coming up with a renewable energy management center where we will monitor entire renewable in that respective state, then respective region, and then give them the prediction that what will be the total variability of the renewable over a period of day, over a period of week, and over a period of month. And accordingly, they can then plan their thermal and other generations so as to maintain the reliability integrity. So this is possible only because we could do the automation. So that is what we are doing in generation side. In transmission side, we have already bring in entire information of a transmission asset at the common level, where we are monitoring everything right from the devices, switches, to every flow parameters of a transmission line. So this will help us to give me an initial information. Now, as you said, information need to be converted into intelligent information. So that over that we have to use some intelligent AI analytical tools, which we are developing, and some commercial products are also available in the market. That is one thing. But till now, we were doing the monitoring at the seconds level, because that is one level of information thing that we could achieve. Now we realize over a period of time that in 10-second period, we can only do the steady state kind of analysis. We can only monitor the flow, but we cannot prevent or make the system reliable and secure, because fault happens in a seconds of time and it then percolates. So we need to have a mechanism where we can enhance the technology. So now we have moved into next generation of technology, where we can gather the information in milliseconds and then we can analyze. The first level is that we have to analyze it, and second level is we have to act upon. So that act upon also has to be automated. So I'm talking of now a wide area monitoring system kind of thing, where we can take an input from the entire geographical locations of a transmission grid, and then we can predict if something happens, what can go wrong, and can we do a predictive analysis, can we do a predictive maintenance kind of thing, so that further trippings or further cascading of an effect don't take place. So we are working on that now in next stage of this preventive analysis. Now similar concept we are planning to put in the distribution sector. So when I say distribution sector, intent is that now we monitor, like what we are doing in transmission thing, we should monitor entire field devices of a distribution level at distribution substation, and then we can do the analysis part, and then next step is to do the preventive and protective part of it. So there was one question from the Andhra Pradesh side. I would like to simultaneously answer on that question also. He wanted to know what are the challenges. The question was put to me by ma'am. So sir wanted to know what are the challenges in making a system automated at a distribution level. So initial challenges starts at you have to make the infrastructure first compatible for the automation. So when I say infrastructure first compatible to automation, I intend to say that devices, which field devices like isolators, breakers, they have to be motorized. If I motorize them initially, if I have to make them initially motorized, then only I would be achieving the desired results. I can monitor and then do the remote operations and analysis along with the analysis part of it. So first thing is that we have to make the infrastructure compatible to the for automation, which includes isolator and switches to be motorable, relays and protection devices to be digitalized or compatible to the data transfer mechanism, compatible to the data transfer. And then we have to put in a control center where we can acquire the data for that standard technologies are available. So based on the input part of the data, we can do a lot of analysis. So we are working also on this part also to provide us solutions to the state utilities to make a system automated and increase the preventive maintenance, decrease the maintenance part and operations part of the system in the distribution sector. Apart from that, sir, there are many commercial things available in the market which are providing the automated solutions, like when somebody has talked about the metering and billing sections. So metering and billing, maybe meters are the field devices. We have to acquire the information from the meters through bidirectional communication means, and they have to be analyzed in terms of the different kind of analysis. So with the help of these kind of analysis, we can come to know which of the device is getting overloaded, which of the device is due for maintenance, what are the faults, probability of the faults in these distribution areas, and so we can indirectly improve the reliability of the system, and we can improve the outage time also of the system. So by doing this process automation in the operational area, this is the operational maintenance area, we can, in and all, I'm trying to say that we can improve the reliability of the system, we can improve the downtime of the system, and we can make a system secured also. That is one thing which I am trying to put on. So in SmartGrid basically this is what we are doing. We are trying to get in information from the entire domain, generation, transmission, as well as distribution, through a bidirectional communication network, putting it at a control center end, using the commercial available product, and also doing the research work to get the product developed based on the requirement of the consumers as well as the utilities, and then implementing it in the field so as to bring in the reliability and security for the operation of the transmission, distribution, generation. This is all I have to say. We will short on the automation part that we are doing in generation, transmission, distribution.
Thank you, Ms. Vinita. So I think it's very fascinating about to hear all of the technology that is going into the operational aspects. I thought I'll maybe explore a little bit further with Mr. Arijit. How do you see sort of a continuum between this OT and IT, where if you are looking at managing and maintaining these equipments which are out there in the field, let's say remote monitoring and diagnostic kind of tool, especially forced by COVID. Now all this information is coming in, and it possibly has an impact in how you service your customers through your customer service technologies, right? So how do you see that continuum, and how do you see a role of automation in that context?
Yeah, so of course, I mean, one is that the dividing lines between IT and OT are also gradually getting blurred, primarily because of a lot of additional capabilities that are right now available in the OT technologies. At the same time, there is a lot of synergy that is there in terms of the huge amount of event-related information that we come across from our OT systems. The real value comes when we are, of course, I mean, it is at one level necessary for us to process that information and take immediate action. But over and beyond that also, in terms of maintenance, in terms of actions taken, these event-related data and the health-related information that come across can actually play a huge amount of insight, providing insight regarding what are the interventions that are needed. Like in the case of meters also, when we work with meters, we have found that the meter event data, which often is, comes in huge quantity, and at times there are false alarms also that comes with meters. But if you correctly correlate the event data with other attending information, including the metered data as well, you can come across very, very cogent conclusions which can lead the field team to take actions which can quickly correct something where the meter is probably not registering properly. And as we extend the spread of electronic meters and the system of getting event-related data from the electronic meters to our systems, the need for automation of these processes, the need for application of analytics and machine learning in analyzing this information to find the interventions that are necessary to take corrective actions or preventive actions cannot be emphasized more. It's an ongoing journey, and every organization passes through cycles of maturity to take the process to higher levels.
So, there's a question here from the audience, and I'd like to sort of start embedding those in our discussion. And this one is probably best suited to Kalidas. This is a question around what are the key productivity and demand forecasting factors or processes that the energy sector that can have the most impact from the energy perspective, and where automation technology can play a role. So maybe I think that to reword it, the question is, how can process automation technologies play a role in dealing with the demand forecast?
Yeah, Pramod, can you repeat the question, what it is?
The question is, how can process automation technologies play a role in dealing with the demand forecasting factors and processes?
Yeah, what I say is demand, for the power sector to be efficient, and naturally efficient means that will be definitely contributing to your revenue. Today, the demand forecasting is basically based on our past performance and certain maintenance what we have planned. It is not really very clear what will be the demand tomorrow. And as the day comes, we find suddenly there is a drop in demand or increase in demand, and we are not able to sometimes meet the demand, or sometimes whatever we are given, we are not able to meet. So it leads to financial loss also. If there can be a scientific prediction of demand, then my productivity will go, because I have to plan accordingly only. Tomorrow, this is the amount I have to generate. I'm damn sure about that. Maybe with about 0.12% change. So to that extent, I'm comfortable, and I have to maintain only that much inventory only. So I can optimize all my other processes for that demand. That definitely cost productivity will go up if I can have a comfort in the demand prediction.
Mr. Arijit, you're both a generator and a distributor. How would you deal with this question?
We are actually a pure play distribution utility, but demand forecasting is a very, very important part of any DISCOM, because it is, the errors in demand forecasting straight away translate into money spent, which could have been avoided. So the importance of accurate demand forecasting can never be overemphasized. And again, I mean, as Mr. Kalidas was saying, while demand forecasting is a very relevant area, the availability of the right solutions in this area, again, I mean, it calls for a level of various levels of maturity. And when we look at the inputs that get into demand forecasting, weather forecasting for us is also a very, very important input. And weather forecasting is not always accurate. When you are looking for a forecasting in, say, 15-minute time slots or even less, the weather forecasting data that we get can often lead to incorrect forecasts of demand. But at the same time, this is a process which matures over time. Many of the utilities in India are still kind of doing forecasting, which is heuristic in nature, whereas there are utilities also which have tried to go into demand forecasting on the basis of data-intensive processes. We have also started that process, but as I said, I mean, it's a process where a lot of learning comes in, and maturity comes with time in that process.
Pramodji, I want to say regarding this demand forecasting. See, from a real practical perspective, suppose we have a plan having say 4 or 5 units. Normally, what happens during daytime, it runs at part load, okay, because there is renewable also, and peak hours we have to again increase the generation. If I had a pretty good prediction for the next 3-4 years, 3-4 days, I mean, say, what is the generation I have to maintain, including peak hours, I can take a very calculated call of taking out 1 unit instead of keeping all running at part load. That way, it saves money for me without causing any problem to the grid. So demand prediction that way very, very important.
I think that makes no sense. So, Ms. Vinita, are you say something?
Yeah, I want to add on to it. Demand and renewable forecasting, they both depend on weather parameter and real-time parameter. We have to have a past information of weather and the demand through the automation process, and we have to store it. If we do it rightly, we have a weather parameter for the past, and we have a weather real-time parameter of the demand for the past. Now, weather can be predicted, forecasted, and demand can be predicted based on the past information on a similar weather data. And accordingly, we can come up with a forecast which is very, if it is very near to what is expected to have. This is what we were doing in the power system operation to predict the next day's scheduled generation and demand for the utility.
I think so. I think it's very interesting to hear that there are multiple factors that affect demand, and obviously multiple ways to predict demand from multiple systems. And you really need to develop a cohesive view of all this data through collection and then analysis, and then obviously impact your backend systems in servicing that particular demand. And I think in building this whole orchestration, I'm sure you're using a bunch of technology, and automation obviously play a role there. I think so. Maybe the next question that is here, and it was also on my list of questions around. So the specific question is around: can suggestions be given for implementation of RP over existing ERP system? So let me just broaden that question to say that I think all three of your organizations are fairly large organizations. There must be multiple business application systems already in place for HR, finance, customer service, IT help desk, etc. So maybe if you could elaborate upon how you foresee where automation can add value, with maybe some specific examples. Maybe one example each from all three of you would be fantastic. So I can probably start maybe Arijit and then move to the other participants.
Yeah. Straight away, I mean, when we look at automation opportunities, the processes that we deal with in customer service as well as in the back office operations, including finance and commercial, which in commercial department in our parlance, actually they deal with the billing and receivables management. These functions, finance and the commercial functions, majorly deal with data, and that often requires a lot of manual and repetitive work. And this is where automation can definitely make a difference. So far as customer service is concerned, again, one important factor so far as customer service is speed of response and accuracy of response. Both play a very important role. And to that extent, wherever the processes can be automated to provide those advantages, and where the errors are minimized, manual errors are minimized, definitely they can help a lot so far as customer service is concerned. And also what we can see is that the technologies so far as OCR are improving even more. Not only are scanned documents, printed documents read very accurately, but even the accuracy level so far as scanning of handwritten documents are improving, especially if there are blocks already marked out for the handwriting. And these are also going to play an important role, because if we can scan documents and start processing them, then also we can reduce manual interventions and respond quickly. So the customer will definitely appreciate where we can come back to them with accurate and quick responses.
Mr. Kalidas, how would you see implementation of automation agenda, and how would you see IT's role in driving the automation agenda as part of sort of the overall digital transformation agenda? Who would you see as the lead, and who would you see as the collaborator? How would you set that up, from your perspective?
See, automation definitely IT. And definitely, I mean, IT alone cannot do the automation. You have to convince the concerned process departments and how much we can improve the efficiency, reduce their pain points. Once they convinced, they definitely come for automation. Now, as far as certain RPA initiative, what I told in the beginning, I mean, see, once, as I told you, one specific case in our case, that this medical, health checkup details updation in the system. Now we have a mandatory health checkup every year. Employee has to go health checkup, and those details have to be pumped in the system. It's a very boring job. Somebody has to open, you get a hard copy from the hospital, and you have to punch physically the system. So this is an area where you can definitely use RPA process for doing this automation. So we have done a pilot and we found it is very much accepted by the employee, the concerned department also. Another area is vendor onboarding. We day in day out we have to upload information about vendors, their name, their phone details, their PAN details, bank details. These things come in a hard copy or sometimes scanned copy. There's a process again where the automation plays a big role, and we are going for automation in that area also. Then the finance, all kind of bills. Of course, not in soft copy only. They have to physically verify each and every item. Again, it's a manual job, error-prone job. What can be trained for that? That is an area where they are also looking forward to automation. So that way, I mean, other than the main core O&M and billing, all these functional areas, there is a lot of scope for automation where people are struggling with manual jobs. And the important thing is they are willing for automation now. There is no resistance for automation.
Okay. So I think just to summarize, you're basically suggesting that IT can take the lead role in identifying the opportunities and work with the various departments in doing POCs and figuring out where the value is and drive the agenda from an automation perspective.
Exactly.
Ms. Vinita, there is probably a more specific question for you, which is around the cybersecurity. And the question is essentially around how should India think about cybersecurity, given that this is a critical infrastructure for the country? And how would you advise from a hardware and software perspective, what standards to follow, and how do you minimize the risk around cybersecurity? Not directly related to automation, but I think it's an important one on everybody's mind, given that the whole landscape of the systems is changing. And we obviously have threats from all around the neighborhood.
The question is to me.
Yes, Ms. Vinita.
Actually, in operation and maintenance part, in the process technology part, it is very essential because every information has everything which we are getting through IT infrastructure, it has to be cyber secure. So as of now, NCIIP is a national critical infrastructure team. They have defined certain procedures to make to be complied by the vendor while configuring a IT infrastructure things. That's something we keep a very we keep in every tender, that every vendor who comes for this implementation has to comply with the certain requirements of the IT infrastructure part. That is one thing. And second part is if every year we go on for a penetration and vulnerability test, because there are n number of things in cyber security. If you keep whatever you provisions you keep, there is always a possibility of hacking, because day in day out the hackers are finding out new ways to hack the system. So what we say is, since we are into operation process industry, we are not 100% aware of the thing that are coming in the market. So what we do is we keep a penetration vulnerability test by a certain auditor only, so that they every 6 months they do that penetration vulnerability and figure out if there is any new signature that has entered into a network system. So that is the only way we try to ensure that cyber system for the operation OT purpose is secured in the network.
Some of the conversation we are having with the different IT organizations, not particular to public power sector, are essentially around how do you fight with this evolving threat of cyber, these hackers, and essentially having robots or bots monitor all the different parts of the system from the attack perspective, from understanding and evaluating the attack surface, and have the robots essentially fight these hackers. So once you have deployed these systems and once you've figured out the attack surfaces, it becomes important that these are monitored all the time, not on a ad hoc or a periodic basis. So that's some area which is, I think, becoming much more sort of ripe for automation in a way. And if you have the standards and if you have these AI models, I think it becomes easier to think about how do you really do the implementation of all these robot-based systems. Mr. Avijit, were you going to say something on this?
Yeah, I would agree with you in that, and so far as data management is concerned, automation can definitely play a very important role. Also, if there are events or occurrences where we know that there is a set response that we need to provide, where the response is predictable, we can also definitely take advantage of automation. Beyond that, and of course, I mean, so far as security is concerned, what also happens is that we are swamped with a lot of huge amount of data, and working with that data itself is a major challenge when we are talking about managing it through manual processes. So definitely therein there is a role for automation to some extent, but at the same time, many of the responses that we need to provide to cybersecurity related events also require human judgment, and then that is where, I mean, automation can play a supporting role, but ultimately those decisive interventions will have to come with the help of human intervention.
Right. I think this is where a sort of human AI partnership is very useful,
Yeah.
where the humans are the eventual judge of the situation in implementing a particular solution. So I think we will probably open it up for live Q&A. Ragini, would you be able to see if there is anybody who wants to ask a live question?
We have Mr. Sanjoy Sarkar who has kept his hand raised. Let me check.
Okay.
Mr. Sarkar? You are unmuted now. If you have a question to us, you can directly ask the panelist. Mr. Sanjay Sarkar?
This part of technology isn't really sophisticated.
Yes. There might.
I think, Prabhu, I have seen one question directed to me in the chat box that is regarding, I think, e-invoice. I think somebody has asked a question whether it is statutory requirement to accept hard e-invoice in hard copy. I think there is no requirement like that. If it is digitally signed, it is well accepted these days.
Okay. Is Mr. Sarkar reachable again?
Not really. We have one question from Gaurav Saxena from BHEL. Gaurav, you are unmuted. You can ask your question. Yeah, you are audible.
Yes.
Okay, my specific question would be perhaps to Ms. Vinita as well as Kalidas sir regarding what I am also in a PSU environment. So I just want to know how much has been attainable with respect to this automation in-house and how much outsourcing and collaboration you had to do.
Okay, let me take it first. See, all new technology, let me admit, we don't have the resources right now. So we have to depend upon outsource only initially. But what we do parallelly is we also develop an in-house expertise. At least for our key areas, we have to parallelly develop the expertise. Traditional, IT setup, we have the expertise. Right now, see, we have been on ERP for the last 10 years. 12 years, so all these things we are managing in-house only. We have the expertise as far as administration changes everything is concerned. We are managing our own in-house, mail system. We have a huge team which is making all kind of applications, mobile apps, portals. But when it comes to new kind of analytics, data analytics, AI, we don't have the expertise. So there we have to partner with the experts outside, and slowly we will be developing expertise in those areas. This is our strategy.
See, I have a very strong view in it. Outsourcing can be done for maintaining the IT infrastructure, but the system is yours, so you need to know what the data is and what kind of requirement or expectation is from the data. So we have to develop that data inside Analysis initially we can have some commercial available product to get the analysis done on the data, but over and after that we have to develop that expertise and come up with a answer that how we are going to utilize this data. So that expertise you cannot outsource. You can only outsource the maintenance part of a system.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, essentially think about what you are good at versus what somebody else is good at, and I think collaboratively the system has to work at the most optimum point.
The next question we have, so I hope all the questions been answered. So the next question we have from Mr. Harananta Rao. He's CMD, Andhra Pradesh Southern Power Corporation. So I am just unmuting him. Hello, sir. Can you hear us?
I able to hear, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your initiation in the conduct this workshop. Primarily, our DISCOM has taken up already the building activity, metering activity, and collection activities. Now we are planned to go for 10,000 megawatt renewable energy, especially to feed the agriculture sector. This is the initiation of our state government, and our agriculture demand is around, we got 20 lakh pump sets in our DISCOM, and in our own state it will be 22 lakh pump sets. So to meet this, our state government has proposed to establish 10,000 solar parks in and around the state. So to have the grid stability, our GENCO people has recommended to go for automation of agriculture-based substations, because to maintain at least 20% of demand-side management to meet the fluctuations in the grid because of the renewable energy. So they asked us to go for of rural-based agriculture-fed substations. We are already taken up automation of our urban substations, especially in our state headquarters, Vijayawada. We also taken up automation of our distribution network up to 11 kV in IPDS scheme. This is already 70% of job is completed. But in automation of rural sector substations, we are facing some typical challenges, especially in our AP. How we are feeding the agriculture loads. So we are feeding 9 hours three-phase supply. That is agriculture feeders, agriculture pump sets in one feeder has been given 9 hours daytime supply. And in other 15 hours, we are using same lines and we are extending supply. In again converting to three-phase. So we in other 15 hours we are giving single phase supply in same 11 kV line by two mechanical by operating different two oscillators, and only single phase network in rural sector through single phase transformers. So our rural network is totally connected with single phase transformer system, and our agriculture based networks are connected into three-phase system with 9 hour supply. So here we are operating basically in offload condition. The isolators being operated and see that there's in two steps. One is to extend for 9 hour supply, and another step is to give for one phase supply. So now we plan to go for automation, and in our HV breakers or in power transformer automation and our feeder breaker automation. Okay, somewhat we have an idea, but only we stopped where the automation of these isolators. That is whether go for any auto reclosers to operate in single phase and three phase, or go for motorized sectionalizers. This is one area we want some suggestions from your expertise ends, and also all the substations we want to take up around 500 substations. So 500 substations are already connected more or less with optical fiber network. In rural areas, it is almost 80 to 70 to 80% effective communication is going on. But because of the power sector, we want 100% communication to operate all the substation feeders from the SCADA control room. So this is our requirement, and we are on this job for 2 to 3 weeks. And in that time, I used to find your this workshop information. So I want to join in this, and I want to have some guidance from your expertizations. I hope what is my particular problem.
Thank you for the question. Sunita, would you like to maybe give a high-level insight and then perhaps branch this off into a separate conversation, relevant experts that you can recommend?
Sir, basically, one is your expectation from automation that we need to do. Now, what I could understand is you have to do you have to switch on from single phase to three-phase supplies. You have to operate your isolators as well. So initial and the basic first requirement is you have to make all these switches and devices motorized so that I can convert this information into digital information and transfer it to a control center common place. That is the first basic requirement. Second requirement is whether I have to use an auto recloser and sectionalizers or not. So that is the need of that is needed because auto recloser and section will work in tandem and will let you know which of the whether it is a system single phase is to be auto reclosed, and then you have to also convert your protection into numerical protection so that protection information is also available at a common location. So that is a basic need first to make a data acquisition thing possible. After the data acquisition thing, then sir, how you have to operate your system, then we have to sit and figure out with the experts that this is how we can automate a system. We can make a logic analysis part of the data to operate your switch gears and devices for providing a supply as per your requirement. Am I clear, sir?
Yeah, you are audible. Just I got my technical team. I got some more queries on the subject, and he will raise 1 or 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Pragya, how much more time do we have?
Pardon?
Pragya, how much more time do we have?
So we have just 5 minutes.
Okay.
For this conversation, only 5 minutes.
Maybe this question can be taken offline. Is that possible?
Definitely.
So now you can send us a question and I will make sure that all of them are answered by the experts.
Okay. Madam, whether any cloud-based servers are being used in anywhere in distribution automation? Cloud-based servers. So without the DISCOM maintaining the physical servers in DISCOM premises, can we use the cloud-based servers for this automation purpose and data acquisition, data storage, and even control also? Just by utilizing workstations at our end and maintaining servers by some third party or cloud, is there any such setup available for any distribution utility in India?
Not to my knowledge. We are not using in transmission any cloud-based servers. We have own infrastructure at control room, and we are providing solutions to West Bengal also. They are also having their own infrastructure, not cloud-based. AMI solutions, metering solutions, yes, cloud-based solutions are now becoming viable, but still for automation, because it's a very secured, your substation security is a major concern. So as of now, I have not found any such installation in the room.
I think at a general level.
Final question. Is any DISCOM in India completed rural substation in automation successfully?
And DPL, I think, is doing. West Bengal is doing.
West Bengal
has 3. Yeah, West Bengal,
Okay.
WBICTCL has their 3 locations, 3 districts completely on automation. Almost like 80 substations, they are operating, they are remotely operating. NDPL, entire NDPL is on remote operation.
So
Okay,
we
thank
have one
you.
more. Thank you so much, sir, for asking the question. We have one more question, one last question we are taking for the day. And all of you, we please keep sending us the question over mail, so we will try to answer them from the experts. We have a question from Mr. Ramesh Akala. So I'm unmuting him. Mr. Ramesh,
Yeah.
you can introduce yourself and then
Good afternoon, panel speakers. See, my question is regarding return on investment. How is this justified in your respective companies or corporations? Because variably, we get a lot of questions to be answered, maybe for the CFO or CEO for any IT proposals that we push forward. And second, my extension of this question is maybe Kalidas sir, I think our business is also similar to them, NTPC. So any value assessment study has been conducted, because ultimately whatever applications we develop, it is to promote business. Somebody is 33% said productivity, 33% said quality and compliance part. See, all these all right. But when it comes to a discussion, the CEO and CFO invariably ask for justify your expenditure. So I would just like to know from the panel speakers whether you have any established method of getting continuous budgetary support for the ongoing IT applications and then the infrastructure behind.
So at a high level, I can say from our experience of implementation of automation in over 4,000 customers that a lot of our customers see return on investment in as early as 6 months. So we've generally found that between 6 months and 18 months, you can get the full investment back. And I think that has helped us to position the software even in the COVID times. And a lot of organizations and the appetite for automation investments is just growing because of the ROI. But I think specific to the power sector, maybe Mr. Kalidas and Arijit can speak about what has been their experience and how do they justify it to the board. Yeah.
I think question is very valid question. Huge amount of money. The question definitely comes: what is the return on investment? How fast we can recover it? See, there are 2 aspects we look into here. One is definitely yes, any investment, it needs an analysis, how much you are spending, how much you're getting in return. So one is ROI part of it. That definitely we have to work out. We do work out that. But then there is another aspect also, that is the intangible benefits. Okay, certain things we cannot tangibly say this is the return in terms of rupees. So that also plays a big role in convincing the management the benefits, the ease of doing business, some kind of advantage which we cannot quantify in terms of money, but it is definitely there. And these both things we have to consider: tangible, intangible benefit, both are required. And the third thing is, of course, the perception. If the management is a little digital oriented, definitely they push for all these kind of innovatives. So that is a take one has to take into your organization. How you can convince the management. That is up to you.
Mr. Arijit, what have been your experience in convincing the management?
Yeah, so far as automation projects are concerned, I think there is an advantage in the sense that one can actually identify the savings that much more easily, and it is definitely far easier to anticipate and calculate the payback as compared to, say, implementation of an ERP package. And because you're specifically focusing on those process steps where automation can be brought in, and where you actually can do away with manual effort. So in terms of process automation using RPA, definitely a far clearer picture emerges when you do that discovery process.
Right. And From our perspective, we have services available to do discovery workshops around processes and understanding the paybacks. And I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the session as well, that we have a technology called Discovery Bot, which can essentially act as an observer on users' machines and then essentially understand what the user is doing to get a process done, and then suggest the automation steps and the ROI from the automation. So some of our customers are beginning to use this just to even understand what the process is like. So a lot of times you don't get the right idea about what different people are doing to execute the same process. But when you do automation of this discovery, you can very quickly get to what is the real picture about what you're doing and what kind of benefits you can get. And that certainly assists in building up a story around what to automate and why to automate. I think that's all the time we have. I think it's been a fantastic learning experience for me, and from OT to IT and the intersection of OT and IT, how to approach an automation investment and what benefits we can get. I think a fantastic conversation. I just got a ping that there is one more question. Pragya, is there one more question?
No, I think I have already said that that was the last question, and I would request you all to summarize. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I think I'm being pinged about a poll question. So I think we have a fifth poll question. Let me get to the fifth poll question quickly. Pragya, do you have access to that?
Yes, I do have access.
Please.
Yeah. So everyone, we have the last poll question that I want you to participate. So this is the question: how would you like us to interact post this webinar?
That's the easy one. And while the audience is filling that out, let me just once again thank Mr. Kalidas, Ms. Vinita, and Mr. Arijit. Thank you for your time, and I am confident that the audience took away a lot in understanding how to use the automation, and in the current scenario, how they can get maximum benefit out of this technology. And any question from the audience that comes, Ms. Pragya, after the session?
Yeah, for sure. There are few that have been unanswered, like automation in coal supply chain from mines to plant bunker, including cost, quality. So few questions there are still unanswered, like on implementing RPA for inventory control, kind of question.
We have examples across the board, and we will answer all those questions over email. Yeah.
Sure. And thank you, everyone. So I am just closing the poll and showing the results.
Yeah.
So 36% people have said that they would like us to communicate them through advisory workshops, and 25% people said to develop a use case, and 16% people said that build a pilot. 23% people said that help in scale automation.
That's this level of interest is great to hear. And once again, good luck to all the audience members, as well as thank you to all the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vinita ma'am. Thank you, Arijit ji. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you so much, everyone, all the attendees that you have given us questions, and for your interactive engagement. Thank you, our experts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Self updated with our upcoming workshops. Do follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and log on to our website www.event.governance.com. So keep yourself updated on the workshops that keep coming in for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And do share your feedback at events@governancenow.com. That's our ID where we will be happy to receive your questions and your. Thank you.